If you swing with the whole arm, for example, the upper arm moves sideways with the forearm. Or the upper arm moves up with the forearm. Or the upper arm moves forward with the forearm. All these shots will be weak and ineffective. Today, we'll cover fundamentals, common mistakes in forehand and backhand drives for amateur players, and how to fix them. Let's start with arm mechanics. Ever wonder why some shots feel awkward to return? It's because your shot has too much friction, creating unwanted spin. It's halfway between a drive and a loop. A proper forehand or backhand drive should be a clean hit with minimal friction. To achieve this clean contact, your arm position is the first thing to correct. Keep your forearm level with the table, or slightly lower. This ensures a pure, flat trajectory on the ball. During your forehand backswing, for both penhold and shakehand grips, don't let your hand drop much lower than your elbow. Dropping it too low turns a clean impact into a brushing motion, which adds unwanted spin. So, keep your forearm relatively level, and aim to strike the very back of the ball. You are not lifting the ball from underneath to create an arc, you are driving it forward. Second issue, why do your shots often land short, unless you hit with full power? This is because you're not completing your follow-through, you're not driving through the ball. Without a proper follow-through, your shots will naturally lack depth. If you only retract your arm at impact, your shot will be short. When you try to force it, you'll hit it out. However, if I focus on driving forward through the ball, even without much power, the shot will land deep near the baseline. Many players just swing up or sideways from their contact point. When they realize the shot has no power, they start swinging with their entire arm. Over time, this habit leads to many unforced errors. So for your forehand, to get depth and pressure your opponent, your arm must continue to move forward through the point of contact. At the moment of impact, don't immediately change direction, like snapping upwards or sideways. You must drive forward first, and then finish your swing upwards or to the side. This principle applies to all forehand strokes, drives, loops, and even looping against backspin. After contacting the ball, you must guide it forward. Your follow-through can go forward sideways or forward upwards. The exact direction depends on the incoming spin and ball position. Third point, why do amateurs often hit their forehands out? There are three main reasons. The first reason is your backswing position is below the ball. When you swing up from there, you create too much arc. If you stand further back from the table, your shots stay in. But if you're playing close to the table, any extra power will send the ball long. For a forehand drive, your racket should never be lower than the ball during your backswing. The second reason for hitting out is an incorrect initial racket angle. You may wonder, why can I rally 100 times in practice, but in a match, when the opponent attacks my forehand, I hit it out? This happens because standard forehand drive drills usually involve flat balls with very little spin. However, when an opponent switches from your backhand to your forehand, amateur players tend to stand more upright. As long as they drop their racket lower than the ball during the backswing, the resulting shot will inevitably carry some topspin. So, you're no longer dealing with a simple flat ball. It has upward kicking topspin, even if it's just a little. The more the ball kicks up, the more you need to close your racket angle. That's why overdrilling the basic drive can hurt your ability to feel the brushing motion needed for a loop. The key is the racket face. With the same power, an open racket face will send the ball out. Close it slightly, and the ball lands on the table. Close it even more, and you'll have the control to hit with power. So, against a topspin ball, to hit hard and stay consistent, you must close your racket angle. Your racket should be angled to contact the upper middle part of the ball. Hitting the center of the ball is for the beginner stage, when you're learning the basic, gentle swing. Remember, against topspin, racket angle is the key. The more the ball kicks up, the more you need to close your angle. The third reason for hitting out is racket instability at impact. This is often related to equipment. Amateurs tend to pick very light rackets, but a lighter blade is less stable. With a heavier setup, you can maintain stability through the contact point. The lighter the racket, the more it will feel unstable. You should avoid blades that are too light. I made this mistake when I was young. I thought a lighter racket meant a faster swing, but when you apply power, a light blade is unstable at impact, causing errors. Aim for a standard weight or even a slightly heavier blade, especially for players with strong hands. Otherwise, your shots will feel floaty and lack control. The second cause of instability is generating power with your wrist, which makes the racket face wobble. When driving against topspin, your wrist must be absolutely firm at the moment of contact. Watch closely during the impact. The wrist must not move at all. When looping, look, you start with the backswing, then use your fingers to drive the wrist to create friction at the point of contact. Once the brush is finished, your wrist remains fixed throughout the follow-through. To land your loops consistently, you must maintain a stable racket face. Why are many players inconsistent? Because their elbow is unstable. If the elbow moves, the racket face will definitely move too. For both loops and drives, your elbow should point downwards or slightly back. Not up, out, or straight back. This is a very important point. Another common issue is excessively tensing the wrist to force power. Against topspin, you can generate power without any wrist movement at all. Watch, my wrist is completely locked. See? The wrist is locked, but the ball still has plenty of pace and spin. Don't let your wrist be loose. Keeping it firm and stable is key. So what about looping? It's the same principle. At the moment of contact, power comes from your fingers squeezing, but the wrist itself must remain stable. You can train your wrist strength, and it's also good physical exercise. If you have a light dumbbell, you can use it to train your swing speed. This is too light for me, so you should choose a slightly heavier weight. This exercise trains the speed of your arm contraction. So, how do we train the wrist specifically? Let me show you. You can rest your forearm on your leg or a table to isolate the wrist. Using the table as a pivot, do wrist curls like this. This strengthens your forehand wrist. Reverse the motion to train your backhand wrist strength. Always use an appropriate weight, especially for older players, to avoid injury. If you do this, start light. A grip strengthener trains your fingers, not your wrist. To make my backhand banana flick more explosive, I did a lot of this reverse wrist exercise. As professional athletes, we would train with weights starting at 20 kilograms, which is quite intense. Now for our next topic, the importance of recovery. To make your movements fluid, you must focus on your recovery after each shot. Don't finish your stroke and just freeze, admiring your shot. Don't pause to see if the ball went in or what your opponent is doing. After every single shot, you must return to your ready position. The stroke is only complete after you recover. One full motion is the stroke plus the recovery. See how fluid this looks? So, after every ball, you must actively recover. Our next key point is the elbow. A common problem is failing to separate the movement of the forearm and upper arm, which kills explosive power. The forearm is never relaxed, it stays tense and just pulls straight back. This is a huge mistake. You must let the forearm drop down. Once you open the angle between your forearm and upper arm, you can generate power. Whether it's accelerating for spin or driving for power, it all becomes possible. For looping, let the racket head point down. For a drive, have the racket head point sideways. If your racket head points up during your backswing, you haven't opened up your arm correctly. If your elbow points backward, your forearm can't engage, and your stroke becomes a simple push. The problem lies with the elbow. Point the tip of your elbow downwards, it might feel awkward at first. With the elbow down, the forearm can open up for a proper drive. For a loop, the elbow also points down as the forearm swings back and down, not just straight back. This incorrect elbow position prevents relaxation, hinders power, and often causes your loops to go into the net. Feel like you're pushing your elbow slightly forward. This will allow your forearm to drop and relax. The elbow should always be positioned forward like this, never pulled back. Now, let's discuss common problems on the backhand side. First, the most critical issue for many players is an incorrect swing path on their backhand. For a backhand drive, your racket head should point towards the 10 o'clock position during the backswing, not 8 o'clock. This is 8 o'clock. You want it at 10 o'clock. From 10 o'clock, first push forward until your arm forms a V shape. Then rotate your forearm outwards. Watch. This is the standard, textbook form. Remembering these 3 steps will greatly improve your technique. First, racket head points to 10 o'clock. Second, don't extend your arm straight, keep a V angle between your forearm and upper arm. Then, drive forward first, not straight up. After driving forward, rotate the forearm outwards to the side. Like this. This applies to the penhold grip as well. Start at 10 o'clock, and the stroke will be very clean. Second point, should you use your wrist in a backhand drive? No. But you might ask, if the wrist doesn't move, why does yours look upright at the end of the swing? That's because the motion comes from the forearm, controlled by the elbow. When your forearm rotates outwards, the wrist itself remains in a fixed position. As the forearm rotates and the elbow drops, the wrist naturally changes its orientation. The tip of the elbow goes from pointing sideways to pointing down. When the elbow points down, the wrist naturally points up. So, the final position is not a result of actively flicking the wrist. It's a natural consequence of the forearm's rotation. Our next point is the most common backhand mistake for amateurs, an unstable, uncocked wrist. They can't maintain a firm, cocked wrist position throughout the stroke. The moment you try to add power to the shot, your wrist collapses, and the end of your stroke becomes a floppy, unstable flick. This is a common weak point because the backhand wrist is naturally very flexible. Whether I'm punching, ripping, looping backspin, or doing a banana flick, my wrist is stable. You can clearly see my wrist position. The danger is when players brush the side of the ball. Avoid this motion. In a match, this will cause you to hit into the net or off the side. The problem is not keeping the wrist cocked. If it's not cocked, you can't make solid contact. Your forward motion ends up sending the ball sideways. This is why you'll struggle badly when receiving serves. For a strong backhand, you must keep your wrist cocked, for both penhold and shakehand. During the backswing, your wrist should feel like it's pushing out, maintaining that firm angle. From backswing, through contact, to the finish, even when I'm looping a backspin ball, watch my wrist. Look, even without the racket, you can see that my wrist remains cocked. You must find this feeling of a cocked wrist. Only then can you make solid contact and generate power without instability or errors. Think of it as keeping the back of your hand facing your opponent at all times. Backswing, contact, finish. Even when I flick, the back of my hand finishes facing the opponent. Don't let it break outwards, downwards, or wipe across the ball. All are incorrect. When I want to create a very heavy loop, I might even exaggerate the angle. Let me demonstrate against backspin. See? I have to maintain this angle to generate maximum spin. If my wrist breaks open like this, the ball will go straight into the net against any spin. Because you're hitting the side of the ball, it loses all its forward drive and lift, and just dives down. How do I generate so much power? Because my wrist is completely locked in this position. Look, without the racket, you can see it's exactly as I described, the wrist is cocked. Through the follow-through, as it comes up, and as I open up for spin, it stays cocked. The back of your hand must always face forward. It cannot turn sideways or wobble. This is absolutely the most important principle for the backhand. The wrist maintains this angle through the entire stroke, backswing, impact, and finish. It's not a sudden flick at the end. See the difference? This is the crucial point, you must always keep it cocked. Our final point, separation of the forearm and upper arm. When I want to generate quality, the forearm and upper arm must move independently. Why do so many amateurs struggle to generate backhand power? It's because of this. See that? The upper arm moves together with the forearm as one unit. This is what it looks like when the arm segments are not separated. It's the same fundamental mistake as on the forehand side. So watch closely. As my forearm accelerates, my upper arm only moves a bit before stabilizing, allowing the forearm to whip through. It's this feeling of a quick snap at the end. The two parts must have phased power delivery. If they move together, your arm is just a rigid stick. This is proper separation of the forearm and upper arm. Forearm and upper arm separated. The power is explosive. It's even more obvious on a rip. Forward. Then whip. Forward. Whip. Now a continuous motion. If you swing with the whole arm, for example, the upper arm moves sideways with the forearm. Or the upper arm moves up with the forearm. Or the upper arm moves forward with the forearm. All these shots will be weak and ineffective. You can see there's none of that whipping sensation. Exactly. A backhand lacks power because the entire arm moves as one unit. The correct way is upper arm forward, then forearm up. Or, upper arm forward, then forearm sideways. The mistake is moving everything together, sideways, upwards, or forwards. That's why you can never generate real power. In impact sports, explosive power doesn't come just from size or raw strength. This kind of power is generated by separating the movement of your forearm and upper arm. It's upper arm forward, then forearm accelerates. Upper arm forward, then forearm accelerates. If you move them together, especially against backspin, it won't work. You won't be able to lift a single ball. It's extremely difficult, unless the ball has no spin. In any striking sport, to generate that sudden burst of explosive power, you must use your upper arm and forearm in separate phases. The upper arm provides a stable base, while the forearm is for acceleration and power.